loathsome bastards, and welcome to hell. I mean my so-called show. It is now week 2 of our Halloween season, so let's ramp up the terror with an awesome first movie that will later be butchered years later by a turd of a sequel. That's right, machete-wielding babes and blood-puking gentlemen. This is 28 Days Later. Released in October 2002, 28 Days Later starts with a bunch of animal rights activists breaking into an animal experimentation lab run by Alan Partridge's former boss. He warns them the chimps are infected by a virus called Rage, but they don't believe him, of course, and guess what? It all goes tits up as one of the chimps infects one of them. And you can probably guess what happens to Alan Partridge's former boss after this. Which is nowhere near as worse as this.
Smell my cheating, mother!
Cut to 28 days later, a bicycle courier named Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, wakes up from his coma to find out the world has ended. After going around London, he finally comes across some infected that try to kill him, but he's rescued by Selena, played by Naomi Harris, and some guy who gets killed later. He finds out about the Rage virus, how it spread quickly and infected the whole of England, and after an attack that leads to the guy who gets killed later getting killed now.
Well, that'll stop him.
They come across a guy named Frank, played by Brendan Gleeson, and his daughter Hannah, played by Megan Burns, who take them in. They discover a radio message claiming there's an answer to infection, and it's all the way up in Manchester. Yeah, mad for it. Yeah. So they set off in the hopes they will find that answer, but can they make it there alive? And will the answer be the cure in order to avoid more inferior sequels?
No.
Okay, the story is basically another take on the original I Am Legend novel, but that doesn't mean it wasn't something unique. I remember when the first trailers hit and how intriguing it looked, and man, it didn't disappoint. 28 Days Later doesn't fuck about. It throws you straight in there, giving you enough information on how dangerous the virus is. I mean, the opening could have had a montage of the escalating destruction it was causing, but thankfully, as soon as the first victim gets infected, it cuts straight to Jim waking up, which in my opinion, works better. You already know what's happened, but at the same time, you're trying to figure out how things went to shit so fast. And what your imagination builds up in your head can be 10 times more horrifying than what's shown on screen. London is a very busy city, and the crew had to work miracles to make it completely isolated. Thankfully, the hard work paid off, and it really feels the world has come to an end. And despite how tranquil it seems, there is still something unnerving about seeing a once thriving city become completely empty, because sooner or later, you know something more sinister could be lurking around the corner, ready to jump out. And when shit happens, it gets intense. This might be the first film where we started seeing zombie-like things actually run, making the fight for survival more desperate. And the infected themselves are pretty shit scary. Even the fucking rats are trying to get away from them. And when the infected see you, they will not stop. They're not just out to eat you. They want to destroy you, obliterate you, fuck you up. Even if you're capable in a fight, you still have to worry about the blood getting somewhere in your body, like your mouth and your eyes. Even when they aren't attacking you, they pose a threat to infection. Like this scene where Brendan Gleeson's character accidentally gets a drop of blood in his eye. It's a clever twist that establishes more and more how things can go wrong so fast when you're least expecting. This was also the first time digital cameras was used for the cinematography, and while it did get overused to the point it made action scenes look like seizure-inducing nightmares in other movies, here it works well, bringing that guerrilla-style grittiness as well as add more intensity to the action. The cast also do a great job in their roles, and they don't feel like the typical stereotypes we've seen in horrors. These characters feel like real real people who have had a life before everything went to shit. And the fact some of these actors were unknown at the time helped add more of a low-key realism of their characters. Cillian Murphy sells the innocence of Jim, a man struggling to come to terms with the facts everything he's known has gone. He starts off passive, but he soon grows some balls when he knows what's at stake. Naomi Harris is convincingly tough as former nurse Selena, who's had to become more cold and hardened to survive, but never to the point where she's an unfeeling nutjob. She can still be charming and playful, and does start to regain her humanity more through her journey with Jim, Frank and Hannah. Thank God this was made in 2002, because today she would have been an insufferable girl boss. But because people knew how to write strong female characters back then, they knew to give her context and have a competent actress sell this character. It also shows why she works well with Cillian Murphy and why their opposing character developments work as a nice contrast to each other. Brendan Gleeson is also very likeable as the tough but kind-hearted Frank. He's not an apocalyptic badass, but he brings a real warmth on screen. Nothing feels phoned in with this character, and you do feel his desperation to protect his daughter. You want this guy to survive, but sadly...
Jimmy's infected! No! Jim, kill it! Kill it!
Yeah, this still upsets me. God rest your soul, Frank. You deserve better.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine.
But once again, it makes that feeling of death being around the corner all the more real. Christopher Eccleston is on chilling form as Major Henry, and he could have been a two-dimensional nutjob. He's psychotic, but at the same time, Eccleston plays him in a way that makes him come across rational, or at least a man who believes he's being rational. He's just like Jim, a man looking for an answer to infection, but his answer isn't totally wrong.
8 days ago, I found Jones with his gun in his mouth. He said he was going to kill himself because there was no future. I moved us from the blockade, I set the radio broadcasting, and I promised them women. Because women mean a future.
It is ethically insane because pimping out a teenager, that's fucked up. So yeah, he's the bad guy, but Eccleston still does a great job making you understand his motive. He does convince as a major, he has a commanding presence. He still comes across as kind and considerate, who cares for his men, and you can see why they respect him.
Kill a boy. A child. Yes. But you had to.
Otherwise, he'd have killed you.
The soundtrack also fucking rocks, using the indie Britpop style music that makes this film feel British while still adding to that unsettling atmosphere, especially in the final climax. If I had to nitpick, the second half where they meet the soldiers does become less interesting, but it doesn't ruin the movie as we still have the characters opposing ideals on survival to provide some harsh but thought-provoking moments. And it is still miles more compelling than the original second half you can find in the DVD extras. Megan Burns is also sadly wooden as Hannah, but in the second half of the movie it does start to work to her advantage, especially within the context of the movie. And honestly, if you're an HD nerd, don't bother with the Blu-ray, it barely improves over your battered scratched DVD you sold to CEX years ago for a shit amount of credit vouchers. But even after all these years, it's still an effective, atmospheric, intense horror that showcased the talents of lesser-known actors who would go on to become big names. It's violent, bloody, intense, smart. It feels realistic and definitely won't leave you in a state of murderous rage. So, did that leave you more uncomfortable than being stuck in a room with an anxious Pedro Pascal?
I'm gay. I suck penis every day. Fuck me in the ass.
Oh, don't worry. Next week will be the most harrowing thing you could ever be put through. A review of an unnecessary sequel.